All right, you ready, Cam?
Yep, ready whenever you are.
All right, hey everyone. So my name is Nathaniel Johnson. I'm the program lead for the Hot Springs Association. Thank you for joining today. Today we're gonna dive into the Hot Springs program and where we've started and where we're at. But I'll let Cam introduce himself here for a second.
Hey guys, my name is Cameron Annis. I serve in two capacities at Granite. Number one is our CEO, and number two as our national practice leader for our adventure and entertainment division. So thanks for joining, and we look forward to talking to you today.
Yeah. So what today is it's a deeper dive into where the Hot Springs program is right now, and then also a recap of where we started. So I know some people may not be super familiar with the program and where it started, and where we've been and where we're going. So we'll touch on that a little bit. So some of you did hear a little bit about this in May when we were at the conference. Um, so I had originally thought about going through this presentation and diving into all the different underwriting eligibility requirements within the program, but I thought that would get uh, very in depth and probably a little confusing and do more bad than good. So today is just focus on the past of the program, where it's been, and where we're going. A couple of housekeeping notes. As we go through here, as you have questions, just put them in the chat box, and we'll get to those. And then just feel free to ask any questions anytime. So we'll dive into this. So first, one thing I think that I've failed to do, or we failed to do, is talk about why Granite. Like, why are we doing this? Why are we involved in this as in the Hot Springs Association? Why are we here at all? Um, and first, so our agency, we are a niche agency. We all we do is national programs across the country. That ranges from zip lines to whitewater rafting to water sports programs to campgrounds to UTV tours. And our intention here in all the niches that we serve is to find groups that we can help, which extends just beyond premiums. So premiums are obviously important, but what we enjoy doing, what Cameron and I enjoy doing, is we enjoy taking things that people say can't be done and then creating them and solving issues that historically could not be solved. And from our perspective, it all starts with educating underwriters, being involved in the association, learning from you guys so that we can then educate underwriters, which then hopefully translates to better insurance programs, better insurance premiums. But most of all, what we are here for and why we do our job, why we're here, is because we want to help protect your vision, protect your business, not just facilitate a transaction. We want to be partners with what you do. We want to help you guys grow as an association, as an organization, and as an industry. And if we can help with the insurance piece and help make it a little bit better, then that's what we're here for. So, the original concept of the whole association insurance program, it all started back in 2023, 2024, when we were in Marietta. And Cameron and I stood up at that conference. We stood on stage and we asked a question. We said, "Oh, how many of you have seen a 10% rate increase this year?" Now, a bunch of hands went up. And we said, "How many of you have seen a 25% rate increase this year?" A ton of hands went up. We said 50%, 100%. And after 100%, we kind of stopped and looked at each other and realized half the room had their hands up after 100% rate increases. And we're like, wow, there's obviously an issue here. And on top of the premium issues that we discovered is that we found that underwriters were viewing hot spring resorts as they were viewing you as Marriott hotels, which you guys are not. You're a resort, you're a wellness organization. Um, they were also viewing you guys as being public pools in some situations, which did not make any sense because you're not a pool, you are a wellness resort. So we quickly realized that there were issues from a premium perspective. There were issues from an underwriting perspective and how they classified you. And as we got into it even further, we realized that there were a ton of coverage issues and education gaps within your programs. So we found that a lot of hot spring resorts where they were having wildfire exclusions when their property was in a high wildfire area. Some resorts had a water hazard exclusion which doesn't make any sense because that is your business. And then we also found that some resorts had the exclusions for the use of tubs or baths. So if you're a soaking operation, that didn't make any sense at all. So the original concept here was first for us to learn, get educated on how the industry works, relay that information to underwriters, and fix these issues that we were seeing, both from an underwriting perspective, a coverage perspective, and a premium perspective. And that's what led to phase one. I'll let Cameron touch on that a little bit.
To Nathaniel's point, all of these issues, really came out of lack of education, right? You guys knew exactly what you did and you understood that, hey, in most of your operations, like we don't use chlorine. But the underwriters could not get on that same page, right? And it's a lack of education from your operations to the insurance carriers. And there's a breakdown somewhere in between that. Typically, it has to do with potentially the agent you're using and the fact that they're not experts in the hot springs industry as well. So as Nathaniel mentioned, the first phase was phase one. And Nathaniel, that took place really between kind of the latter half of 24 and 2025. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was really phase one where we had to learn even more about the hot springs industry, what it was about, the risk management procedures that you guys do, and so that we could become that advocate on your behalf. We had to learn that. We had to learn about what were your challenges, as far as from a coverage perspective and a pricing perspective. And then we really had to get a couple of insurance carriers on board with insuring the hot springs industry. And these are just general insurance carriers that are out there. It's nothing specific, nothing special. Here at Granite, we are an agent or a retail insurance agency or an independent agent. You may hear them call all different types of things. And we work with over 300 different insurance companies. So we had to essentially convince them that we were the go-to and the specialist in this industry, the hot springs industry, and that they could begin serving you guys and kind of stabilizing the insurance marketplace. Because that's really what it boiled down to. And Nathaniel's talking about with these massive rate increases and limited coverages. It's difficult to operate a business whenever you're spending that much time on figuring out what your insurance program is going to look like next year and whether it was even going to be feasible. It almost kind of felt like probably you were working for the insurance company to some extent. And that's not how things should feel or look. How it should feel is that we are supporting part of your business to help you be successful. So throughout the first phase, guys, we in that year, year to year and a half, we built a pipeline and essentially a client base of over $3.5 million of premiums through you guys and through the hot springs industry that we were able to bring on board as clients because we were able to either, number one, put you in a better position or you believed in the phase or the program that we were developing long term. So, and all of this was never meant to be just one phase. There were several phases of this whole project. But phase one was what we had to have essentially to get data in-house so that we could have credible loss history data. We could have analytics for whenever we went to phase two for us to look like an educated expert whenever we go to phase two.
And phase two.
Talking about phase two, what phase two is phase two is developing a insurance program specific for the hot springs industry. It is your own program. It is designed just for the hot springs industry. The resorts focused around wellness and hot springs wellness. It doesn't include hotels and motels that don't do what you guys do. It doesn't include resorts that don't do what you guys do. It is just for hot springs. You get specialized coverages because of that. You get specialized loss control because of that and risk management efforts. All of those things, that's what phase one was about, was to give us the data and the credibility to be able to build phase two. Nathaniel mentioned early on that what we do here at Granite is, nobody had ever created this before. Nobody. Think of how long hot springs have been around and nobody had created this. And what we heard, even whenever we went to the conference for the first year, was, yeah, nobody can do that. That's just too difficult. It would take a lot of time. And Nathaniel and I don't know if you call it ignorance or what, but we said, we can do it. we'll do it. And that's what we do here at Granite, is kind of take those programs that have not been created before and develop those things. So phase two went live, and EUM stands for kind of what we call the program. It's called Exclusive Underwriting Managers. But this program went live on April 1st of 2026. The first 3 months have been a huge success. Nathaniel, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know of any hot springs operation that we've, I would say probably at least 95% of them that we've looked to put within EUM has made it and moved into EUM. Is that a somewhat correct statement, Nathaniel?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we're right at $1 million so far since 4/1 in total premium within the program. So, yeah,
Right.
successful so far.
It is, yeah. So the first 3 months, already, putting $1 million of business within that hot springs program. The whole point of this is to create, like Nathaniel said, partnerships, not transactions. It's to create value-added coverages, value-added risk management, and ultimately stability. Because you can plan your business if you know and have stable insurance programs. It's very hard to run your businesses whenever you have those spikes of 50, 100% increases, drops in coverages, non-renewal, somebody not covering water hazards whenever that's what you guys do, those types of things. And this program is really built off of the simple concept of, if you invest in risk management, you should be able to get a reduction in your premium because you are investing in risk management. How many times have you guys been frustrated in the past where, you've went to an insurance carrier and you said, you know what, we added surveillance all throughout our property. What can you guys do on the insurance premiums? Because we did that, and that's, investing in risk management. And they came back to you in a typical insurance fashion. They said, oh, that's great. Hopefully that will prevent future claims in the future, but we're not going to reduce your premium any because of that. Whenever we looked at the insurance world in general, like, we believe that increased risk management deserves a trade-off of lower premium, and it should just be levers. And we should be able to come to you with those levers and say, hey, if you make this investment, you'll get this return on the insurance side of things. And because of that, this program is built off of best-in-class operations. There's a high barrier of entry. It's not just fill out an application and you get in. There's things you have to provide, such as, your operating procedures, your, kind of your testing logs for the pools and everything. You've got to prove that you're doing those things to be a best-in-class operation.
And what I'll add here, so a lot of times we get questions is, what is included within this program? So from a coverage perspective, general liability, excess or umbrella coverage, property insurance, inland marine, auto, crime, and then specific coverages for hot spring resorts, which would be fungi and bacteria coverage, sexual abuse and molestation coverage, and just other general enhancements like that. So it does include property. The only thing with property insurance, property is a little bit, there's more restrictions on the property just because of capacity reasons within the program itself. But property and inland marine is a part of the program. Again, there's some stipulations on the property side of things. So it's an all-encompassing program for this industry.
Thanks, Nathaniel. So whenever we talk about levers, and this is probably overwhelming looking at this, but no insurance company to date, like in the hot springs world, looks at things this granular. This was a tiering system put together by operators of hot spring resorts. What we did was we assembled a committee and we sat down and we said essentially, hey, what are the primary risk factors that you see on the left-hand column here that differentiate, like, what are the, the key risk things that you're looking at with a hot springs as far as things that make one, safer or less safe. And this is what they developed here. And then essentially we have tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. And each of these risk factors on the left hand, it's not like everything you do is in tier 1 or everything you do is in tier 2 or everything you do is in tier 3. The first tier factor could be tier 1. The next one could be tier 3. And then it's just like golf. You go through, you add up the total score, and the lowest score wins, right? Obviously, if you had everything in tier 1, that is the best rate to be in, and you would get the lowest rate. And the more things you have in tier 2, the higher your rate gets, and the more things you have in tier 3, the even higher your rate gets. And we can play with these. For example, if you say right now, I'm looking at the surveillance side of things, which is the second one. If you have no surveillance, but then you add a little bit of surveillance in the high risk public areas, which are, consider the pools or the soaking tubs, we can tell you, all right, well, that'll translate to a $6,000 a year savings on the insurance side of things. And then if you went, yes, in all public parts of the property, which would include like the check-in lodge, the parking lots, things like that, you get a $12,000 reduction. So we can literally tell you what those movements will do on the tiering system side of things. And what we love about that is it just enforces a safer industry and enforces or, kind of reinforces or incentivizes people to invest in risk management, which we all benefit from the increased risk management in our industry. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts behind the program and the development there. Nathaniel, anything you would add to that?
One thing I know that we get questions on a lot is around waivers. Like, can we help you write a waiver? Can we write your waiver for you? Can you pull one offline? So there's actually a waiver webinar that Cameron and some other people on the team have done several times. That's on our website. But we have a group that we work with, Outdoor Law Group, who can help implement those waivers and can help you put those into practice. Waivers, if you have a spa offering like massages and that sort of thing, waivers, you do need to have a waiver in place to be eligible. But if you're not offering spa services, you don't have to have a waiver, but they're good to have if you're, just operating within this industry. So we do have resources to help you implement those waivers. And then we can talk about that more on a one-on-one basis. Yeah. And then, so part of this program was to, over time, you make enhancements, you make it better. So phase 3 from here is going to be all about taking this EUM program and making it better in the future, which is going to be direct impact from you as members and from the association. What this is, from an enhancement perspective, these are things that members of the program get, or members of really just from our agency, they get from working with us and being a part of this program. So the first thing here is human resources. So let's say you're in a situation where maybe you have a disgruntled employee, or you're going through a high turnover situation, and you want someone to help you think through that process and help you from a back-end HR perspective. There are a team of HR specialists that are there to help, and you can call and talk to them at any point, and they'll help you direct through those HR issues and any other HR related questions that you may have. Another enhancement as a part of phase 2 and as a part of this program is safety. So hopefully none of you guys you have any OSHA violations, but if you do, what do you do after you get that citation? We can help with that. But also the big thing here is if you have trends within your organization where you have a ton of slip and falls and you're trying to figure out why are these happening and what do we do to make this better, that safety team can help you do that. We can help you do that to make sure that you're improving, you're getting better, into the future, and as well as just helping the overall program perform better. And then the last thing, which I think is the biggest, which I have seen already become a big benefit to other members that have been a part of this program already, other hot spring resorts that have already been a part of this program, is the internal claims management that we have. So internally, we have a claims team that works for you, that works for Granite Insurance. They do not work for the insurance company. So many of you have had claim situations where the insurance adjuster comes in and they sort of take over the situation. You don't know what's going on. There is a claims team internally that works with us from the very beginning, and that is their expertise, which is claims. And they'll get involved from the very beginning to make sure that the claim process goes correctly, that the right information is collected, as well as that the adjuster is doing what they need to do to make sure the claim is moving correctly. They do not work for the insurance company. That is the biggest piece here. They work for us, and they are in your corner, not the insurance company's corner. And again, they've got decades worth of experience and have been through about any situation that you may see. So that's it. It was a shorter, I told you it was going to be a shorter presentation here. This on the recap of the whole association program. From a question perspective, I know a lot of times what we get here is, do you have to be a member of the association? The answer to that is yes. In order to be a part of the program, you have to be a member of the Hot Springs Association. You have to be an active member. We can look at things and have conversations to make sure it's going to make sense for your resort, your business. You don't have to be a member during that process, but to be a part of the overall insurance program, you do have to be a member of the Hot Springs Association. I know that's a question that we get all the time. But my information is on the screen. Cameron's information is on the screen. I would love to, chat with you guys, answer any questions, or talk about the program, into the future and how it maybe applies to your business and move you into it. Cameron, anything you want to add?
No, look forward to chatting with you guys.
Thanks, everyone.